Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Luc from Beneteau, and I'm very pleased to welcome you today to this Figaro Beneteau 3 webinar, where we'll be introducing you to this new Beneteau boat. And to do that today, we have the pleasure of having a few guests around the world. So I'm currently in France, and in France too, we have the boat designers, Vincent and Daniele from VPLP. Good morning, guys. And we have also on the other side of the world this time we have Cecile Laguette, who is currently in New Zealand. Hi, Cecile. So the goal of this webinar is to present you the Figaro Beneteau 3. So I will start with a bit of history because you can imagine that if we call it the Figaro Beneteau 3, it's because there have been a few boats before. And actually, the Figaro Beneteau 3 is the third generation of one design boats that Beneteau has been building over the years. The whole story started back in 1990, where Beneteau developed the first offshore one design boat for the Figaro class. Before using one design boats, the Figaro class was using prototypes. And obviously, as with any class using prototypes, there were differences in speed and budgets. And to stop this, let's call it a arms race, the class decided back in 1990 to introduce a one design boat, which was the first production boat with water ballast, the famous Figaro 1. So Beneteau built 140 of them, and they've been used by the class between 1990 and 2002, with a big mileage for each boat, as you can imagine, because it was the first time the Figaro class crossed the Atlantic with those boats. It all started in 1992 with the Transat AG2R. Then after this many years, the class moved to the Figaro 2. Figaro 2 was way more modern than Figaro 1. So the big differences you could see were the carbon rig. Figaro 1 was had an alloy rig, and Figaro 2 moved to a carbon rig. And also it was an introduction of the twin rudder system for more stability, both upwind and downwind. And the common feature between Figaro 1 and 2 are the water ballast. On Figaro 2, you had 300 liters of water ballast on each side. Then, almost 15 years later, the class decided to change again, and the Figaro 3 project was launched, and the idea was to have the boat ready in 2019. And again, every time the class is launching a new boat, the plan is to keep it for a very long time. So Figaro 3 was launched in 2019, and the goal is to keep it for 10 years at least. So the project was initiated by the class Figaro Beneteau, which is a professional racing class run by sailors for sailors. So basically, the board of the class is made of professional sailors. They decide about the boat, they decide about the class rules, they decide about the race program. And the idea is to have a very competitive championship run every year. And the pinnacle of the championship is obviously the Solitaire de Figaro. Sorry, go back. So yeah, the Figaro Beneteau 3 project was initiated in 2015, and the idea was to have the boat ready in 2019. 2019 was the 50th anniversary of the race, and then I will hand the floor to Vincent at VPLP. We'll explain and we'll talk you through the design brief and the design process for Figaro Beneteau 3. So So over to you, Vincent. And I think you can move the slide yourself. If you have a problem, just let me know.
So I am Vincent, and Daniele is with me. He's a collaborator, and we have been working together on this boat. In fact, it has been a kind of agency involvement, but Daniele was really the project manager in VPLP for this boat. So he's here to explain us everything about the boat. And to start with, we have been hired by the class to compete an architect contest for this Figaro 3 to change the Figaro 2. And basically, everybody had the same design brief, and the brief was based on a boat which had to last 10 years, so it has to be modern. It has to show some modern features for sailing. The boat had to be a bit smaller than the Figaro 2, because the boat had to stay in a price envelope which is moderate. And the boat had to be faster than the Figaro 2, of course. The boat had to be dedicated for short-handed sailing, even across the Atlantic, because it's part of the program. Has to be strict on design, everything except the sails, I think. Has to be equipped with high technology features like a carbon mast and carbon rigs, and we went onto obviously the feature of the foils. We will speak about that later. And with a large cockpit, which is dedicated for single-handed, of course. And so with all of that, we had to find to propose a solution to the class, and we've been working on that, and we went onto a project which was a project with foils. Why with foils? Because we wanted to make a step further after the ballast, and we wanted to get rid of the ballast because we wanted to sail light, and we wanted to sail with power and a high riking moment. So what was the solution to sail light? It was first to have a small boat, have a relatively low freeboard, not too much developed surface, and having the chance to work with a team in Beneteau, which was able to build the boat in a high-tech way, in fusion glass. And so the boat intrinsically was lighter than the Figaro 2, thanks to the shapes of the hull, which are much more boxy than the Figaro 2. The boat was at the same riking moment of the Figaro 2 without ballast, which means that before speaking about foils, we could say that sailing at the equal riking moment than the Figaro 2, we had a safe weight of half a ton, which was 500 kilos, 550 kilograms, which is quite a lot for a boat which is 3.2 tons. And we went on the turbo features. Why? Because we wanted to have some kind of a turbo in special condition, like reaching in breeze, but above 16 to 18 knots, of course. And with these foils, we had two interesting benefits. Was first of it, we can gain something like 10 to 15% of writing moment by pushing the leeward side outside of the hull. And this foil was developing a vertical lift, which was worth about 400 kilograms, which means that altogether, in certain conditions, compared with a conventional keel boat, we could sail something like almost a ton less than the previous boat. And that was what we have been developing in this project for the class. And maybe this approach has been a good approach for them, and they've been very interesting by that. And they vote for us. And that was very good for us. And if we go more deeply into details and into explanations about how this boat is behaving and how we handle the boat, maybe Danny can follow up the presentation.
Yeah. Yes, as Vincent said, one of the key parameters was the stability, because of the new ISO requirement with water ballasts were very penalized. So we decided to go for a very powerful hull shape. The problem with that kind of hull is that the boat needs to limit its leeway, because it's very painful on drag. So the idea of having asymmetry in the appendages, and the other idea was to link some kind of a vertical lift to the side force that has to be produced. So that's why we went for a very small keel, because it's the only symmetric appendage on the boat. We prefer to shift the lift to the foil, because they are very they're far from center line. They produce a lot of righting moment at the same moment as they produce lift. So the idea was to link this need for dugboard to the possibility of generating vertical lift with the same appendage. So yeah, this was the basic idea of the design. I can go to the next slide. Yeah, the principle of the foil is very simple. The idea is that we have to have a very all-round kind of appendages. They have to stay inside the maximum width of the boat, and we want to go upwind with that. So we have to design appendages that were able to produce side force, and transform this side force in part of this side force in vertical lift, because the side force is what you need to go upwind, and especially with a wide boat, you definitely need to reduce leeway. So we went to this concept, which is working even at a low speed upwind, is producing a very efficiently way side force. That's why the keel fin is so small, because we prefer to generate lift with the tip of this Chistera foil. And when you go fast, you add to the side force requirement a lot of lift, because you load the foil also in speed and angle of attack, and not only in leeway. And so you can gain a very you can gain quite a sensible edge in terms of speed and downwind angles. And this can be seen on the next slide. Here we see the Chistera foil outboard. They can be fully retract and stay within the width of the boat. And when they're out, they stay reasonably in the safety area you have around the boat, and so that they don't stick too much far away from the hull. And the show, Yeah, the next slide was the one I wanted. So the boat is then very efficient upwind because of the asymmetric dagger board and the righting moment generated by the hull. But when in medium breeze and when you start bearing away, the performance get boosted more and more by the righting moment generated by the foil. And yeah, the speeds can go up to 20, even higher numbers. Still keeping the boat in a very safe mode. The boat is not nosedive. It's not a nosedive attitude, even when it's strongly loaded downwind. Is pretty safe in these terms. And the other interesting thing we can appreciate on the polars is that especially in medium to strong wind, the downwind VMEG angles are very wide. It means that in a class race, in a fleet race, there is pretty a sensible amount of leeway in terms of downwind choice. You can try to you can try some tactical options without being penalized in terms of VMG angles. So you can choose a fast mode to go looking for a wind shift, for example, or you can go more low, and you have more or less the same VMG downwind. And this is because there is a shift in performance. The more you bear away, the less the foil helps you. But as in the opposite sense, the more you go on a higher angle, the more the foil works. So the higher angle are more affordable in terms of VMG, and this is something very interesting for the fleet race point of view.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the concept, and after 2 years now, maybe it's going to be the third year. Looks like Cecile and Luc will confirm, I hope, that the boat is fun and the boat is quite reliable. We didn't have issues on the fleet, particularly, and the boat is quite seaworthy too. So we are not too worried about the boat crossing the Atlantic, for example, and sailing in strong breeze. And so I think we're quite happy with the result, and I hope we share this feeling with other people on the table here. So
thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Daniele. Very interesting insight in the design. So as Vincent explained, yeah, the boat has been racing now for nearly 3 years, and so we'll go a bit more in details about the racing aspects. So obviously, most of the racing has happened in France in class racing. That means in one design configuration where basically boats don't bother about handicap racing, and they really focus on the time on the water, and the first boat crossing the line wins. However, obviously we know that the class for the moment is mostly French, so we sold the boats outside France. And so in the US, we have boats all across Europe, in Sweden, in the UK, in Italy, and so on. So obviously, the boat has been rated in different rating systems to allow the different owners and programs to be operated. And so yeah, the boat has been racing in IRC, ORC, PHRF in the US. SRS is actually a Swedish handicap system, and although the boat is definitely not a handicap boat, it's been winning races all across the world, in Sweden, especially in the US also, and and that means that you don't need to race in class to have fun and to go fast on the water. So I took a very precise example of a race that happened last year in France. So basically, that was an offshore race in the channel between Normandy and Brittany, and the race happened in the summer. And the class, as you can see on the chart, the Figaro, they raced a 400-mile course together with a fleet of 40 IRC boats ranging from 31 to 44 foot. And so the IRC boats were raced either fully crewed or double-handed, and the Figaro were raced either mostly single-handed, but a few of them were double-handed as well. And at the end of the 100 miles, that means about 2 days racing, basically the first boat across the line, but also in handicap, was a Figaro. It was actually a Figaro sailed single-handed by a British guy called Sam Goodchild. And basically, Sam finished 3 hours ahead of the first IRC boat, which was an IRC prototype which won the Fastnets in 2017. And even on corrected time, Sam finished ahead by more than 2 hours. And to give you a precise idea of the boat potential, the boat finished, the Figaro 3 finished more than 10 hours ahead of a Sunfast 3300, which is definitely typically RC boats. And I think the Sunfast was sailed two-handed. So it gives you an example that, okay, the boat is definitely not an RC boat because it's raced like more or less like a 45-footer. But you will play, that means that on the water you will play with much bigger boats. But in the end, even in handicap racing, with the right conditions, you can even win in IRC. And I think Cecile was pointing out a very interesting point. It was that the IRC rule was evolving, and on the Figaro 3, you have a Gennaker, which is like a turbo on the boat, a turbo sail that you use reaching and downwind. And at the moment, these sails are highly penalized in IRC, but as the IRC rule will change, maybe very likely the TCC of the Figaro in IRC will go down, and that means that the boat will be more competitive. So that was a quick recap of the racing that has happened outside the class, and now I give the floor to Cecile to tell her about her experience and the role she will have with the boat arriving in Sydney.
Cool, thank you, Luc. Hello, everybody. So yeah, my name is Cecile Laguette. I'm from France, but I now live in Auckland, New Zealand, and I've just raced for the last 5 years in the Figaro Beneteau circuit. So I've done 3 years on the Figaro Beneteau 2, and then 2 years with the new boat with the Figaro Beneteau 3. So I'm involved with the project because I'm also helping the owner of the new Figaro 3 in Sydney to commission the boat and assist with the launching. But I think I wanted to give you a bit of insight of what the boat is actually like racing on it. So it's actually an incredible boat and a lot of fun. As Luc, Daniele and Vincent mentioned, there's been a combined effort and a refinement for over 30 years of racing single-headed in France. Combined effort by Beneteau, VPLP, and all the skippers of the class to design, like, at the moment, what we think is one of the ultimate boat to go racing short-handed, like proper racing. The boat's got heaps of potential, and we keep unleashing the potential as we race further and further with it. The first year we were sort of discovering. In 2019, it was a bit of a discovery pathway and trying to have a feel of the boat. And then the more we've raced, the faster we've been. And the more, it's got incredible potential, and it's a lot of fun racing in that fleet. it's a super versatile boat as well. It's really reliable. Like we were able to push it really, really hard, racing in such a competitive class. Like the Figaro Beneteau circuit in France is super, super competitive. I kind of like to summarize it as like, it's like if you're racing at an Olympic level, but offshore for 4 or 5 days at a time, and many, many events over the year. So every little tweak you'll make to your sails will change, and you've got to be at least 100% of your performance all the time if you wanna be in the top pack. The systems on board are really easy, and the boat's been really well thought after, because obviously for a lot of us back in the circuit, in the Figaro Beneteau circuit in France, we mostly solo, mostly single-handed, with a few double-handed races. So the boat's got to be very reliable, because we, being single-handed, we can't spend our entire time, just having to look through systems or having a boat that's complicated to operate. So it's got all the feature of a race yacht, but it's super easy to maintain, to handle, and to understand. So that's a massive bonus. And it's also been built quite strongly. So she's a light boat and she goes fast, but it's also quite strong. So you're able to push really hard without having to worry about what's the next thing that's going to break or anything. It's just straightforward, go sailing and focus on 100% on sailing and not on the rest, which is really, really nice feeling. Speed-wise, easily get up to 15 knots boat speed as soon as you start reaching with the code 0 in some breeze, and then well over 20 knots with the kite. The kite's about 120 square meters, so on a 3-ton boat, she's different. And with the extra righting moments and lift from the foils, she gets going really, really fast. So there's been a few over 25 knot boat speed in some surfs, and I'm sure it's not the end of the story there. So it's pretty cool. In saying that though, so we obviously raced the boats really hard, but in saying that, she's also really easy and accessible to handle, because you can actually take it step by step. So anyone could probably jump on it. She's got a lot of similarities to a more traditional race boat or sailboat, and you could learn how to sail the boat and just take it step by step and start pushing when you're ready for it, and in increments. And we had to do kind of that in the first year, because we had to understand the boat when we change and know how she sailed, know where we could push. So anyone could really do that, and then just decide to push whenever they feel ready for it. So that's pretty cool. It's also, I think it's also an awesome platform to learn to sail short-handed. Ideally, double-handed is good, solo double-handed, because just the layout of the boat, you don't really want to be too many more on board, but you could probably fit 3 or 4. But double-handed is actually ideal on this boat. And then if you're, for the pro sailors, because I know we'll be having a few of you listening to this, it's actually doing short-handed sailing, solo or double-handed, is actually a really, really great platform to become an all-rounded great offshore sailor, because it gives you a lot of perspective of what it is to actually skipper a boat and what you need to understand with strategy, routing, weather, boat placement, and the whole big picture of, looking after a boat both at sea and on land. So it's a really great way of doing it as a pathway to then, when you rejoin a fully crewed boat, and if you can or aim to compete in the ocean race or races like this fully crewed, then you'll be an amazing all-rounded sailor, and you can fit in any role, any position, understanding what everyone else is about on the boat. And so it makes you, as long as you can fit in that team, it makes you a very, very good sailor. So it's a great pathway. And it's also a great boat for everyone else that wants to do more ISC racing. Luc showed us before a few results from the boat. So she's actually, even though she is absolutely not designed for ISC, she actually rates pretty good. And hopefully with the Code 0 being part of the ISC measurements now, she'll rate even better. So I think in the years to come, and particularly thinking about the Sydney Hobart double-handed, that would probably be quite a good boat to go and maybe win that for the first year, or hopefully at the end of this year. And you can also race her in ISC both offshore and inshore. In fact, in France, with this boat, we would also do a lot of inshore racing. The program is mostly based offshore, but we do inshore. and you can literally throw the boat however you want. Like she's really good, and you can race against other standard IRC race yachts that have been designed specifically for IRC, but you'll have heaps more fun on that one because she just gets going a lot faster. So that's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, overall awesome experience. Really love racing on that yacht. Love its competitiveness, and also it's great because it's quite a safe boat, and can be raced by anybody. So you get to choose where you want to take the boat, what program you want to take, and she can fit in many different race program, many different type of people and style of racing. So yeah, awesome experience from my end. So yeah, Luc, I'll hand back over to you.
Yeah, Cecile, maybe you can say a few words about the program in Sydney and how it is coming along. And
oh yes, definitely. So for the first boat arriving in Sydney, I'm doing helping the commissioning process go really well. So based on our experience with the boat for the last 2 years, just helping with all the fit out and little making sure the boat's prepared and ready to race inside Sydney Harbour, basically, and later where the owner wants to take her. So the boat landed in Australia a week and a half ago, and at the moment she's about to be launched in the water next week. And so just done a little bit of the work on the preparation of the hull, installing the foil, installing all of the foil controls inside. The mast's going to be getting ready next week, and hopefully boat in the water and rig in the water, and follow up with the commissioning next week after Easter. And then we're still waiting here to see how we can get to Australia. But the plan is to, if we can't do it now, we'll do it later, definitely, is to go over and then help with the on the water commissioning, help the owner and give him a few tips and tricks, head out on the water together, and how to sail the boat the best way, to give him a good head start. And then also what we'd like to do is just launch the boat officially down there, and then be able to present the boat, take people that are interested to go racing on it, to are interested by the boat. We'll take them out on the water, show them the boat and its potential, and hopefully create momentum, and I guess the ideal would be to have a few more down there so they can start racing against each other.
great, thank you, Cecile. So now we'll go to to a Q&A session, and to give you sometimes to send your questions. We'll play a short video, and we come back to you after that. So I will launch the video now. Great. So we're back. So we did have a few questions coming. Thanks for that. So the first question is a question from Dan. Actually, Dan is asking if we need to be a professional to play with this boat. So I will start answering, and maybe Cecile, you can add a few comments. So I had a chance to sail the Figaro 3 with amateur sailors, and especially I remember a session we did in Newport in the US with many with Beneteau dealers and journalists who, some of them never sailed a race boat before. And actually, what is really surprising when you go on the boat is that the boat is actually really easy. And I think it comes from the way, from the stability of the boat and the stability that the forces are providing. And that means that, I mean, in 20 knots of breeze with the full main and the kite, that means 160 square meters of sail. I mean, you feel very safe, fully in control, and nothing can actually happen. And that means that that's really helping the learning of the boat as well. Is that you're not afraid of pushing, and you're not afraid of going fast, because she's actually really safe. So my short answer would be no, but maybe Cecile, you can comment on this as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the other thing is, because it's been designed for mostly solo short-handed sailings, all of the controls are really easy and accessible. So like from the helm, you can literally do everything. So you can have the kite sheet to windward. You can ease everything if you need to. If you would get into a bit of a wipeout situation or whatever, whatever happened on boats, you can really literally access everything. So that makes it extra safe. Like even without, and the boat obviously it's got an autopilot, but even without putting the pilot on, you are able to do everything. And if you need to, you can put the pilot on and maneuver your boat in a safe way. So that, I think that adds a little bit to the safety of the boat as well.
Okay, excellent. Another question from David this time, and also for you, I guess, Cecile. For professional sailors, is there a Figaro Beneteau 3 community?
Yeah, well, I think so. We have one in France. So there's obviously a class that's been existed for over 30 years, and I think the ideal would be awesome to have a similar type of setup in Australia, New Zealand, wherever we get a few more boats. The everything's been done in France, so the class rule is very well established. The class will also exist in English, so that also would facilitate any transfer of information between countries. And I think it would be a great model to sort of base that on, and then move forward into having a bit of a community set up down there. There's a website for the class in France, which is translated in English, so it sort of gives you information. And there's also sort of a, you could possibly ask question on that website if you needed to, or ask question to Beneteau, and I can answer some for you in the meantime if there's only a few boats down there. But I think the idea would be awesome to recreate that kind of class and community down under. Thank
you. Yeah, and I think what we can possibly add is that the skippers, the pro skippers around the world, either they're French or English or whatever, they are really willing to help amateur owners to get going. And I think one of the features of the Figaro class is the kind of sharing between skippers, and the way the training centers are working is that there is a lot of work together, and a lot of sharing the knowledge and the tips and so on. And that means that after 3 years of racing, the knowledge base is already very, very important, and available to any new owner who wants to start in the class. We can very easily find a pro skippers who will be willing to help and coach like you do, Cecile, for the boat in Sydney, and I think that's quite important as well. Another question from Graham, maybe for you, Cecile, or for Vianney, if you are online, Vianney. When can we see this boat in Sydney?
I'll reply then. Yes, so the boat is in Sydney already. It's with Flagstaff Marine, the Beneteau dealer in Sydney. So it's already there, and I think it should be splashing out and based out of the CYCM Marina from at least next week, if not the week after all the commissioning process is done. So very, very shortly, within the next 10 days to 2 weeks, you'll be able to see the boat for real down there.
Yeah, and I think if you connect to the either to the Beneteau team in Asia or Flagstaff in Australia, or if you follow Beneteau Asia on the social networks, you will find some information about the launches and so on. And I think we have a last question, possibly for Daniele and Vincent this time, which is about the difference in sensation when sailing on a boat with foils or without foils.
Yes, I can answer that because I've been at the first sea trials in Saint-Gilles-Croix-de-Vie at the origin of the first sailings. And we were with two sailors from Figaro, which was Adrien Hardy and Johan Bishop. And we were testing the boat, and they asked us a kind of silly question like, well, can we have one side with the foil and the other side without the foil? So like if say, well, let's do it if you want, and we'll see the difference. It was interesting. So we set out with just one foil. It was about 20, established 20 knots of wind, and we had some runs with and without between 120 and 140 degrees from wind. And it looks like with the foil, the boat was really, really stable, and the boat could be pushed, and you can attack on the waves and so on. And we never had a kind of how do you call it? Roach, yeah. And when we joined and we were on the side without the foil, the story was completely different, and the boat was, as we can imagine, with this huge kite, the boat was really unstable, and we couldn't have either the same speed or either the same course, and we had 3 times nosedive, and the boat lying. So I mean, really was. I shouldn't have expected to have this trial, but in fact it was really profitable to see on the boat what was the difference between with and without, and I can show you that that it was really big difference between the behavior of the boat on both sides. Sure.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. So I think it's okay now. We don't have any more questions coming. So I wanted to thank you all for attending, and thank you, Daniele, Vincent, and Cecile for your very interesting input. And fingers crossed, and let's hope we get more and more Figaros in Sydney and in Asia Pacific. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon.